Detroit is the birthplace of the assembly line. But my, how cars have changed through the decades.
I will build a motor car for the great multitude. Constructed of the best materials. By the best men to be hired. So man can enjoy hours of pleasure in God's great open spaces. Henry Ford.
I am absolutely sure that Henry Ford never envisioned a titanium and carbon fiber ground-bound 200-mile-an-hour rocket when he was thinking about the automobile in Detroit. We are at Belle Isle for the Tenneco Automotive Grand Prix of Detroit. And you know, Belle Isle in the Detroit River is a beautiful place to visit, except, of course, if you're driving a CART FedEx Champ car, because to them, it's rough, it's tough, it's abrasive, constant changes in surface, and walls all the way around.
And on top of the normal challenges that the street course presents, last night a storm swept through the area. Heavy rains here at the circuit washed away all the race rubber. After this morning's warm-up, a lot of the team's primary concern was how long will the tires last, not that they're skidding across the top of the abrasive surface. Some teams are saying 4 or 5 laps, the tires fall off, the drivers gain 2-3 seconds a lap. Could present a real challenge for the race.
I can't wait to see how they're going to handle it and how they will try and pass. Now let's take a look at the starting grid here. Juan Montoya is a 2-time winner on temporary circuits, and today he starts on the pole for the 5th time after a spectacular pole run. Alongside on the front row is Paul Tracy.
These two men on the front row, Paul, represent already this year 5 wins, 10 podium appearances. And this is a key day in terms of the possible championship. For Juan Montoya, remember, #1 in points. By winning the pole, he picks up a very precious point. This could be a big day towards taking a step toward another championship for Ganassi Racing. But then right alongside, consider the case of Paul Tracy. Here's a man who's already won in the past on the streets of Belle Isle. How big of a factor may that be before all is said and done? On one hand, you've got this fearless young rookie from the pole, and alongside an equally fearless, I should say, maturing veteran in Paul Tracy. It sets up a tremendous scenario for turns 1 and 2.
In the second row, it's Gil DeFerrin with his new announcement for Penske next year. Dario Franchitti is on the outside of row 2. He dominated the street circuit at Toronto, leading every lap, and he needs a similar performance today to stay in the championship hunt. In row 3, Roberto Moreno subbing for Christian Fittipaldi, and our latest winner, Tony Kanaan. Tony Kanaan comes to Detroit fresh off his first career win at the US 500. He hopes to make it back-to-back in the Wolverine Straight.
And, of course, the team brings the confidence of that win in Michigan, but Tony Kanaan also brings something else, experience. He has won here in Belle Isle twice in the Indy Light Series in '96 and in 1997. Now, right next door, Roberto Moreno is subbing for the injured Christian Fittipaldi, who, of course, was injured last week in a testing accident at St. Louis. Now, Super Sub, as he is called, has 7 out of 9 times this season out-qualified his teammate. He's done it again today, out-qualifying veteran Michael Andretti.
So in the 4th row, it is Greg Moore. Michael Andretti sits on the outside of the 4th row. In row number 5, Patrick Carpentier and Max Pappas. Now, Mad Max came as close as possible to capturing his first career win last time out, but he ran out of fuel on the very last lap. In the 6th row, Brian Herta and Jimmy Vasser. In row 7, Mauricio Guzman, Cristiano D'Amata. The 8th row, Mark Blundell is back, and we welcome Gonzalo Rodriguez. Scott Pruitt and Elio Castroneves make up the 9th row. In row 10, Robbie Gordon and Al Unser Jr. In the 11th row, Richie Hearn and Jan Magnussen. In row 11, Michel Jourdain Jr. and Mimo Gidley. The 13th row is Walter Salles, and Naoki Hattori is back after hips injuries in the first race of the year. In practice on Friday, Adrian Fernandez caught the wall, caught it hard. As a result, he has a fracture to his right wrist, 4 different breaks. They've pinned it. They say he may be out as many as 4 weeks. And so with Christian Fittipaldi missing as well, that has a major effect on the points fight that Paul Tracy may in fact be able to take some advantage of. Now, that's just a few of the changes that have happened over this weekend. We take a look at one of the others in our Wide World of Sports Mobil update, because the paddock was abuzz on Friday when Roger Penske announced his 2 new drivers for the next millennium.
Al Unser and I had a conversation back in May talking about the future for Al, the future for myself and the team. And both of us said, let's look out for other opportunities for each of us. And today, I concluded earlier this past week driving contracts with Jill DeFerran and Greg Moore, who will drive for us for the next 3 years.
Are you talking to teams in CART? Are you talking to teams in IRL? Are you talking to teams in other sanctioning bodies?
I'm talking to all teams. I can't really say exactly who, but, you know, like I said, I love racing very much. Racing is my life, and I'm still young. I'm still very strong, and we're going to continue to race.
Just some of the changes. We'll have some of the others and the green flag when we return to Belle Isle.
This Wide World of Sports update brought to you by Mobil 1. Nothing outperforms Mobil 1. The Tenneco Automotive Grand Prix of Detroit on ABC Sports. Brought to you by Tenneco Automotive, manufacturers of Walker Quiet Flow mufflers. Firestone, America's tire since 1900. And FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series.
Pace lap now underway in the Tenneco Automotive Grand Prix of Detroit. 2.3 miles around. The stop's going to come in there at 25 to 30 laps if everything goes green, but the tires may not last nearly that long. Let's look at the circuit.
Principal passing areas down into turn 3, where the cars reach their maximum speed of just over 180 miles an hour. We've had some incidents right on the exit and also through this next section. The next portion of the track that gets very, very difficult is this off-camber, very fast right-hander through turn number 8. And of course, there's more passing opportunities on the backside of the track where the cars reach their terminal velocity coming through the last corner at 170 miles an hour back onto the pit straight.
The onboard cameras that we have today.
And as we look through the onboards, a lot of the fans have asked us, Paul, as we walk through who we pick as a favorite. And if you look through the statistics on the pole, Montoya, don't forget he won his first race back at Long Beach. He's great on the streets. But as we go down through the list, it's easy to see we've got Paul Tracy. He's looking for his first street course win. You look at Franchitti, the chances of DeFerran, Moreno, the super sub, and Tony Kanaan. Hondas have won the last 10 street course races, but there's Moreno in the Ford Cosworth. What a great opportunity for him today.
We talked about the changes. Look at how many changes there have been since just 2 weeks ago. Moreno for Christian, Magnussen in there for PJ, who may be back in Adrian's car. Adrian out this weekend. Gonzalo Rodriguez comes in for Penske, and Blundell, Hattori, we welcome them back. Mimo Gidley, he moves over, identical car to Michel Jourdain Jr. at Peyton Coyne. Montoya has the pole. Teresi will start on the outside. DeFerran, Franchitti, the second row. Distance 75 laps, 179.9 miles. They begin to form up. Because of the nature of this track, they can only do that at the very last moment, really off of this next corner. Everyone started with no problem. Field a line, nice sunshine overhead, pretty clouds in the sky. Into formation they go. Montoya brings them toward the green. Green flag is out. Here we go. Franchitti makes a move early on, and one car launches into the wall, and it's Pappas. Consider his bad luck of 2 weeks ago, and look at this today. Yellow flag comes out only there at the moment. Kanaan makes his move on DeFerran. Roberto Moreno working on Kanaan. On DeFerran here. There's Roberto Moreno. You're on board now. DeFerran just ahead of him. Kanaan ahead of DeFerran.
We've talked about it in the past. It takes the Goodyear tires that are on DeFerran's car a little extra time to get up to temp versus the Firestones on the cars around him. So he's really got a fight on his hand in these opening laps until they're up to optimum operating temperature.
And immediately now they decide that they will go to the full course yellow. Matter of fact, that weight on that is not as a result of the nature of the accident, but because they wanted to give the cars a chance to come most of the way around before they actually slowed them down. That's the decision of race control. Here is the accident on the start. Well, obviously one of the Forsyth cars, and my guess is that would be Carpentier, but only a guess.
Yeah, it looks like Max came down for the inside of the apex of turn 1 and wasn't clear of Carpentier there. They got wheel to wheel. Max ended up on the tires.
So that brings out a full course yellow while they get Max Pappas's car back out of the tires and clear the course for racing once again. Obviously, since you saw Max, he was not injured. Parker?
As we watch this, watch the second car. You can see Carpentier's got the brakes locked up following Greg Moore. And you can see it's right rear to left front. But on the way in, it looked like Carpentier was trying to make a move. He had the brakes locked up. Max thought he was clear to come down to the apex. You can see Max really got some air there.
Well, he got a lot higher than I thought from the rearward view of that car. But Max Pappas appears to be okay, Gary?
Yeah, he's back already, made the walk. He's very, very frustrated, as you can well imagine. Max, can you tell us what happened?
I don't know. I think one car hit me from the back and we were out. It's very, very stupid way to start a race and finishing like this. It was not a good start. It was just trying to stay there and maybe someone make a mistake.
I'm assuming this is something that's been talked about in the drivers' meeting, the importance of getting through the first 2 turns that are somewhat complex here as you take the green flag. Has that been the case?
You can talk how long you want, but if someone doesn't use their head, that's it. But, today, just go ahead and do another one. Just 2 races in a row, not very good. But, it's okay.
Well, he still manages that smile. It's a trademark for Max Pappas. I don't know how he does it. Jan?
Well, the situation for Patrick Carpentier is that the team feels that the car is okay. They have tire pressure sensors, and they have lost none of the tire pressure, and he has not felt any vibration. So he should be able to continue without any damage. At least that's what they hope.
And so for Max Pappas, his first DNF of this year after 12 races, the only driver to come that far. He's completed all but 13 laps thus far in the series.
I can't believe he actually fell for it.
Oh, man, you should have seen the look on his face.
Hey, guys, what's up? Not much. Hey, is Juan around? Juan? Juan Montoya, our new driver.
Oh, yeah, Juan, he went out to get some stuff.
Yes. Can you come in to see him when he gets back?
Okay. Here, snipe, snipe, snipe. Here, snipe. Snipe.
It's another ABC tradition as we're ready to celebrate the 30th anniversary season of Monday Night Football. And it kicks off with the annual Hall of Fame game from Canton, Ohio, as the Cleveland Browns take on the Dallas Cowboys Monday night live on ABC Sports. Well, we're ready to go green once again. Of course, Montoya leads the race. This is the 10th race that he as a rookie has led this year, jumping from the pole. Then the 2 cars from T Green, and a great move by Tony Kanaan as he jumps from 6th, coming up into 4th place.
And the thing to look at here, remember Montoya, his first one came at Long Beach at the beginning of the year. He's great on starts and restarts, but Franchitti last year was brilliant here on starts and restarts. He was trying to get away, find his way past Tracy right on that opening lap. Tony Kanaan, his first pole of his career came at Long Beach. He's also tremendous on street courses. This is going to make for a great battle amongst these 4 cars. And once again, once the Ferens Goodyears get up to temp, he'll be right in the thick of things.
Now, without question, keep an eye on this restart on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place cars. Franchitti, Kanaan, and Gilles de Ferren.
And they say you can't pass here. Well, you can pass here. That's what makes this such a great place for the drivers that are willing to really hang it out, get right on the very edge of braking, because if you can get in there, you can get by.
The way they are lined is we're ready to go back to the green flag. A couple of right-handers, and then they can lay the power down and get going. Belle Isle, of course, located in the middle of the Detroit River. It's a beautiful day here. And many of the fans bring their boats up alongside the edge of the course and try to peek over the wall from about 100 yards away.
And Tracy's on it right with Montoya. He's not going to let him get a jump.
Oh, Tracy glues himself to the back end of Montoya. They come back to the green flag. Franchitti is unable to move on Tracy. becomes a little wider, clears air. Big bump when they come off of that corner right there. Look now at this move. Franchitti now looking for the inside. Franchitti on the outside moves in. And he can't do it. Paul Tracy holds on to it. Kanaan still there.
That was his opportunity last year. Dario kept passing on the inside going down to turn 3. Paul shot off that maneuver, so Dario had to look on the outside. Very, very difficult to get around Paul Tracy on the outside of any corner.
2 cars have been in the pits. One is Walter Salas, who topped up, and also Mark Bundell in, Jan.
Yes, and unfortunately he did it under the green because he picked up a puncture on the left front tire. They changed all 4 and fueled it, but that wasn't what they wanted.
Tracy and Franchitti in close quarters on Juan Montoya, the leader.
Tracy has been driving smoother than I've seen him drive in a lot of races, Paul. He's very confident this weekend. This whole middle section of the season has gone so well for him. There's just a renewed inspiration and confidence. You can listen over the scanner with his engineer, Tony Sekeli. He's much more relaxed, much more patient than I've ever seen him. He knows if the race can come back to him if it's not going exactly the way he wants it at a particular moment. But you can see Franchitti is not quite so patient. He's still looking for a way by, under braking coming down into turn 3.
He tries it again. This time it is a move to the inside, and this time it doesn't work either. 2 teams running in close quarters. Tracy and Franchitti in second and third, and Moreno and Andretti sitting a little further back. As you look upfield, you'll see them begin to come into the frame right behind Gilles de Ferran.
You can see how bumpy it is coming off this back corner. They actually slide off the concrete onto the asphalt. There's a big drainage area there into an exposed grate. I was talking to one of the drivers earlier, and he said his engineer asked him what the boost reading was during a lap, and he said, boost reading? I can't even see the dash. Gives you an idea of how bumpy this circuit is.
On board the Super Sub, Roberto Moreno. Position is 7th.
Slowest corner on the track here at 55 miles an hour. As we go through our onboards today, you'll see a big difference between the Cosworth-powered cars and especially the Toyota-powered cars. Upwards of 5 to 6 laps of shifts a lap more for the Toyota-powered cars than the Ford-powered cars. Fords have a very wide power band here, which is a big advantage to the driver. A lot less work.
Back to the leader. Here comes Montoya. Tracy then for Franchitti. No change there. And Kanaan, they get an upwards of 180 miles an hour, a little higher than that at top speed, and they've been averaging nearly 109 miles an hour every lap. That's on a flat, very tight street circuit. No change down through the rest of the field from that original grid order, with the exception of Elio Castroneves driving for Carl Hogan in the lull. He started 18th, and he's able to jump up to 13th on the restart. Look upstream there. There's Gilles de Ferran just ahead of Roberto Moreno. De Ferran announced along with Greg Moore on Friday that he will be a Penske driver in the new millennium. Greg Moore and De Ferran, 3-year contracts starting next year.
A renewed commitment from Roger Penske, showing he's very serious about winning races and championships. He started that commitment by hiring one of the best development drivers in the business, Gilles de Ferran, and also by bringing Greg Moore over, also an excellent driver and development driver.
Just behind them, you got a glimpse of now ride with him. He's closing on his new substitute teammate, Roberto Moreno. Christian Fittipaldi, involved in a testing accident at St. Louis, suffered a subdural hematoma, bleeding internally in the brain. And they say he is fine, but he may be out as many as 8 weeks before he totally recovers and is allowed back in a race car. We certainly wish him well and hope he comes back as soon as he can. Montoya, Tracy, Franchitti, Kanaan, de Ferran, top of the field. Passing is so difficult, and already the tires are beginning to wear. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Welcome back to Belle Isle in Detroit as you take a look down from the Honda Helicam on the Tenneco Automotive Grand Prix of Detroit. And we're watching the two cars running as a team, second and third place. Paul Tracy, Dario Franchitti. There have been no changes in the order since we left you.
And as we watch this battle, keep in mind how fortunes have changed for Paul Tracy. Remember at the beginning of the year, he was on probation, missed the first race. Now, because of his great finishes, especially over the last 5 races, and his podium finish 2 weekends ago, last race at Michigan, he has gained a couple spots in the championship, and now the 2 drivers directly in front of him, Christian Fittipaldi and Adrian Fernandez, are going to be out for quite some time, which if he gets through this and gains 12 points, he'll jump another couple places to 4th in the championship. What a change of fortune, and that can have a dramatic effect not only on a driver's confidence level and his working with the team, but also just on his outlook of the future and his confidence every time he gets in the car.
That's a good way to see the track, watching Tracy and Franchitti. And for the moment, while Tracy is under a little bit of attack from Franchitti under braking, I would guess that right now the best advice to both of them is just to kind of wait station and save those tires if you can.
Well, we just learned that Barry Green had told them to back off on fuel, try to conserve a little bit. Obviously, they're still driving very hard. Up until a few laps ago, the only driver in the 1 minute and 16-second bracket range was Juan Montoya. He's now slipped into the low 117s, but Franchitti and Tracy had fallen back into the high 118s with the group behind them in the 117s. Dario was putting a lot of pressure on Paul to try to get by, but now it seems that all of the teams have radioed the drivers to try to conserve the tires, try to conserve the fuel, and just let it sort itself out over the next few laps.
Leader just turned a lap at 109.5 miles an hour. Elio Castroneves started 18th, now running up in 13th position. Still a single car team, but that's soon to change. Speaking of changes happening.
He's going to have a new teammate.
Oh, Franchitti just got around Tracy. Franchitti just got him.
Don't you hate when that happens, just when you think everything's settled down and you go away? These two guys screw up what you're looking at. I can't believe it.
Tony Kanaan's there as well. Fortunately, we do have tape, Parker. And here it is.
Going down into turn 3, it looks like, Paul, just where Franchitti tried it earlier. He did it last year. Well, that's where he got Paul. Set him up perfectly coming off of turn 2. And now we should see Dario start to pull away.
And that, in fact, is one of the key passing areas, if not the key passing area on this circuit. Montoya, now Franchitti, Tracy, Kanaan, and Kanaan's beginning to take a look at Tracy.
Well, when you're in that position and you've fallen in line and then all of a sudden you see someone pass in front of you, it sort of wakes you up, gets you remotivated, and you figure if they can do it, you can do it.
Gary Gerald?
Well, just following up on that, what Parker was talking about in terms of fuel conservation already. The race pace is a concern for Chip Ganassi Racing and the race leader, Juan Montoya. They're telling him to save a tick. Now, how do you define a tick? I'm not absolutely sure. But save a tick of fuel if you can. And they have reason to believe that the cool cars of Franchitti and Tracy are getting better fuel mileage. Mileage is tough to maintain on this racetrack because you're on and off that throttle so much. So it's very much a concern, and it's somewhat unusual that this early in the race we're hearing that kind of talk.
Gary, we're also hearing some talk about tires. Paul Tracy has just called back saying his rear tires are going off. So that could be one of the reasons why Dario Franchitti appears to be so much more competitive right now. So fuel and tires, both concerns.
Well, in fact, Tracy's been running a little wide back at turn 12. Take a look at this. Watch him come off the corner. And that would certainly explain why a tire might be a problem or anything else from that matter.
And it was a very light kiss to the outside wall. Won't do any damage, but it certainly wakes you up a little bit. And the problem is that strip of paint that we see, the drivers have problems in, not only under braking on the initial turn-in, but also as they come off the corner. You want to use up every bit of road that you can, widen the radius as much as possible. You hit that strip of paint, it takes up that last little 1/8 of an inch, and that's all it takes to kiss the wall.
Juan Montoya had a similar kiss of the wall in qualifying, and that was the fastest lap that he turned, not just with one such kiss, but with 3. Now looking at DeFerrin, with Moreno working on him, battle for 5th. Michael Andretti sitting back in 7th, just about 50 yards back.
We spoke to Roberto earlier about about the change going from a Renard Mercedes power plant, subbing for Mark Blundell, coming into the Swift Ford Cosworth, and you would think that is a dramatic change. Sure, it's still on Firestone tires. And Roberto said, oh, no, that's really not a big part of the equation. It's the team, it's the engineer, it's the setup. You notice that far more than the actual mechanical package change, which was very, very interesting. I expected to hear a difference in drivability, rev range, horsepower, but no. He said it's the way Newman Haas sets the car up or the way Pac West sets the car up that is far different in the working styles of the team.
We take you a little further back now, watching Moore, Vassar, and Herta, three-way battle for 8th place. There's Moore, Vassar, Herta, and then Carpentier's now closing into this one, too.
And Jimmy started in 12th place. He's worked his way up to 9th. He's doing a very, very good job here. Once again, with his experience, he knows that, you know, Detroit's one of those places where nothing will happen for lap after lap after lap, and then in one lap, you'll get 3 or 4 cars off, entangled into the fence, mechanical problems, and then you'll have a long period of time with maybe not much action, but still you're driving very hard, and then all heck breaks loose once again.
Juan Montoya sat on the pole, has led from the green flag. 14 laps are complete. He is still the leader with Franchitti, the only change in the top of the order going to second. Our Toyota Spotlight takes a look at the super sub, Roberto Moreno. He has been truly awesome as he has replaced drivers throughout the year at St. Louis and then again at Toronto as a substitute, finishing in 4th place, driving for Mark Blundell, who is back driving here now. Now he replaces Christian Fittipaldi. But the first moments in the car were not as good as he would have liked. But today, he sits just ahead of his teammate, Michael Andretti, and runs right now in 6th place. A matter of fact, if you look back over his history as a substitute, he's substituted 16 different times for different drivers, and while driving in relief, he's actually scored better than his teammate in 10 of those occasions.
And that's very impressive, because to be able to come into a team situation with little or no testing, adapt to the way the team manager, the crew chief, chief mechanic, and engineer work, their style of getting things done, that is very, very difficult at best. And to do that in the middle of a competitive race weekend, Moreno's one of the few guys that can do that and do it very, very well. And in all fairness, we showed him backing into the tires. We had 8 different drivers make light to heavy contact during practice and qualifying this weekend. This place is very tough on equipment, very tough on drivers.
While we were away, Al Unser Jr. and Robbie Gordon got together on the course, just a light brush, but in doing it, Al Unser Jr. dropped from 17th back to 19th, and that moved Robbie and Jan Magnussen forward. Tires, a critical problem here. It's no surprise. Everyone said it would be coming into the run as you're back at the front.
To go by them.
We heard Chip Ganassi say, use the button to go by them. They've got him clicked back on fuel. When he hits the overtake button, it resets the power to maximum power, maximum fuel, maximum ignition timing. And as soon as he lifts off the throttle, it goes back to the original settings for more conservative power and fuel consumption.
+9.
He's telling him his interval. He's 9 seconds ahead of Dario Franchitti right now. Still turning the race's quickest laps in the low 117 bracket. Everyone else 3, 4, 5 tenths of a second behind him at this point.
And while as yet he has not closed on the back of the field, it is logical that he will do so shortly, so that's what they're preparing for. Well, tires, a big issue, Gary Gerald.
Yeah, Paul, and before we touch on tires and while you're riding there with Montoya, just a quick note. In the warm-up this morning, early in the session, he broke the shift lever in the cockpit. That's something that very routinely does not happen. It took him about 5 minutes to make the change, and the team said, well, it's obviously better to have it happen now in the warm-up session than happen in a race. But then you wonder, does that lurk in the back of your mind? I broke one shift lever, could I break another one? As for tires, Montoya, Michael Andretti, Paul Tracy, numerous teams up and down the line, all complaining that they think they've lost the full effectiveness of their rear tires, and a lot of talk among crews about adjusting air pressure on this first round of pit stops that should be coming up in, what, maybe 5 laps or so.
Right, you got a good view there of the marbles, a better view there of the marbles, that rubber that comes off the tires and is then pushed out to the edge of the track, though much of it stays down in the groove.
And I tell you, that really narrows the margin for mistakes. We saw it in Long Beach. Tony Kanaan missing the inside of the apex, losing the lead as he went into the wall. Cristiano D'Amata doing the same thing. And as the race progresses, that means if you get offline more than 6 inches a foot, it's like driving onto gravel. You'll lose traction and you're into the fence.
The top 11 runners in the race right now all are in the top 14 in the points. The other 3 in the points, 11 subtracted from 14, are Pappas, who is out, and Fernandez and Fittipaldi, who have not started here. Now this is Jan Magnussen. Of course, he is in this car now, replacing P.J. Jones. Jan, what's the story?
Well, P.J. Jones is here this weekend, and I know this has got to be tough for you to watch Jan Magnussen in your car.
Yeah, in a way it is. You know, I mean, obviously I'm a racer, I want to race, you know, but we've had car problems, and we've been trying to figure it out, and so we decided to, you know, do this if it was any difference. And, you know, hopefully, you know, now I think, you know, Jan, he's a great race driver. He's having problems with it, too, so maybe we can all get back to Reynard's and you know, go to the next race.
Speaking of Reynard's, your team has a driver that's not able to drive the next few races. Will you be back in Reynard for Adrian Fernandez?
Yeah, I'll be driving the Quaker State Ducati car next week, and for Adrian, you know, I wish him well. He, you know, we're like best friends, and, you know, for him to suffer that kind of a blow while he's running so well in the championship is really hard on the team. It's really been a bad weekend for Patrick Racing, and, you know, I'm just here to support him, and hopefully next week we can have a good run in the Quaker State Ducati car.
Well, good news for P.J. Jones. He'll be back. Thanks.
What a golden opportunity for P.J. Jones, Paul, because as a driver, you know what you're capable of. And the problem is you look at someone like Roberto Moreno that's doing so well for Newman Haas, did so well for Pac West. Well, gee, he's run with teams that maybe aren't quite as well supported. He's 26, he's 25th. He gets an opportunity, he's at the front. P.J. just wants an opportunity to drive the same equipment as his teammate and show what he's worth. And if he can do it, well, then he's proved that it's not him.
And he really wants to be in that Reynard. Up at the front. Sorry, 4 woes. And we've just left this battle, and Magnussen and Gordon, who were fighting for 17th, managed to find the edge of the race course.
Well, we've managed to do it twice now, Paul. And we've got a replay of it. Coming down into the same area in turn 3, Magnussen looking to the inside. Robbie starts to push him down to the apex, and they just make wheel-to-wheel contact.
Robbie got it around there in such a way. Let's look and make sure. Some debris at the front of Robbie's car, but they may be able to get one, if not both of those, restarted. Kart safety team will come out and try to pull them back, and that creates a situation for pit stops, though we still are under green flag, local yellow only.
And this will be interesting, Paul, to see how far Juan Montoya, Dario Franchitti, Paul Tracy, Tony Kanaan, and Gilles Deferre, and the top 5 runners can stretch their fuel. Dario Franchitti has shown in the past that he's one of the best at it. Montoya has been going very, very quick. We don't know how good he is at conserving fuel, but I have a feeling, as in all other things we've seen, that he's good as well.
Patrick Carpentier in and out from 13th, but they have just gone full course yellow. When they come around, it'll be time for some pit stops. When we come back, we'll see what the leader's going to do. Back at Belle Isle, Detroit, Montoya, the rest of the field, all heading for the pit road now under the full course yellow. Let's go to Gary.
Juan Montoya's first stop. Rob Hill at the left front immediately springs into action with the rest of his team. Remember, everybody that goes over the wall in race conditions helmeted. There goes a wheel hub all the way across the pit road, going to hit the far wall over there. It rolls away, harmless. It rolls to a stop, holding Montoya, waiting for the fuel. This is taking much longer than you'd expect. He may... Whoa, very close there as Walter Salas going out. That was a 17-second stop. Jan?
And Gilles Deferre is 9 seconds into his stop. They're just waiting for fuel. That was quick. 12. Whoa! And he had to get on the brakes to avoid Mauricio Gugelmin.
The pits here very tight, somewhat short. Leaders have stopped.
That's one of the problems with the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, is that the right front, or in this case the left front wheel guy, just launches them almost without concern as to who's there. If you hesitate, you lose positions. It's difficult to pass here at Belle Isle. A lot of the responsibility falls onto the shoulders of the pit crews, because they know that the best place to pass for them is probably during the pit stops.
Now the cars here, you notice they're faced the opposite direction. We saw them 2 weeks ago in the pits. because of the rotation of the course, and all they have to do is shift the refueling and everything over to the other side of the car. It moves over very easily. The situation that brought out this full course yellow when Magnussen was trying to pass Robbie Gordon.
He's going to look down the inside of Robbie as they head down to turn 3. Well, Paul, you've got to at least be up next side by side with him in order to make the pass, and he just didn't have the pass completed. Robbie went for the apex, which is what any driver would do to maintain his position, and they made contact.
Good news, though, is that Robbie Gordon did get restarted. We think they may be able to do the same thing for Magnussen. Long stop for Montoya, Gary.
Yeah, we were keeping an eye on that little hub that went rolling across the track from the left. I thought it was from left front. I'm not sure of that. But while we were watching it, what we missed was the fact that the fueler had a problem. They had to disengage the hose, then come back in apparently a second time, and then got the fuel load in. That would account for the fact that it was a 17-second stop the first time around. Normally, you'd expect this team, with the success they've had this year, to go in about 11 or 12 seconds. And in fact, CART officials are over here now checking on the nozzle, and we're going to find out if there's a problem with this particular apparatus or not. But there's a lot of concern here in the leaders' pits.
Go to Jan Begas.
And Jan Magnussen has brought his car in. They had a spare nose ready, some spare suspension parts, but it looks like it didn't need it. That was a 22-second stop, but obviously he spent a lot more time stopped on the racetrack.
Yeah, the M plate on the left nose wing missing, but apparently they've decided that they will change it later, or they don't need it given the circumstances that they're racing under. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
The Tenneco Automotive Grand Prix of Detroit on ABC Sports. Brought to you by Honda, proud sponsor of the 1999 FedEx Championship Series. Your neighborhood Firestone retailer with over 1,500 locations nationwide. And Mobil 1. Nothing outperforms Mobil 1.
The next time that CART is on ABC will be in 2 weeks for the Target Grand Prix of Chicago on the 22nd of August. 4 o'clock Eastern Time. Brand new circuit, the Chicago Motor Speedway in Cicero, Illinois. Ready to go green once again. Montoya leads the field, followed by Franchitti, Tracy, and Greg Moore, who jumped from 8th to 4th on those pit stops. Green flag is out.
Watch Franchitti trying to get down the inside of Montoya down to turn 3. He wasn't quite as close to Montoya as Tracy was on that last restart, and he may have given away an opportunity here, in which he has.
DeFerrin takes a look inside of Greg Moore. And Andretti working on Kanaan and Gugelman, and I assume it's Carpentier again. Impact a little heavier this time, but you know, it's the restarts that are where you're going to make your moves on a course like this. You have no option but to go as hard as you can.
That's exactly right. You're on full fuel now and cold tires. Pickup's not really a problem because you've gone out on those fresh tires, but still they're cold. You've got a lot more weight. You can't brake as deep, and if you're going to make the opportunity, if it hasn't happened in the pit lane, you've got to do it on the restarts.
Look at this from overhead.
Cristiano D'Amata actually made contact just as they came into our view. Wow.
A full rollover for Mauricio Gugelman. You saw it looked like Herta making a pass ahead of all of that. And Gugelman out of the car. And we have no indication of any injuries there. The safety team moved in and still around Carpentier's car, so we'll get you an update on that. He has told his rescuers that he has some pain in his neck, so they're going to take it very careful.
Growing up in Brazil, I always wanted to be a race car driver. Every day after school, I would pretend to be a champion. I love the speed. Then, one time, I thought it was all over.
Que é isso, Tony? Ficou maluco?
Desculpa, pai.
Vou arranjar uma coisa mais segura pra você.
But it was just the beginning.
With this, guys, I know I'll be okay.
Back at Belle Isle, our Toyota Spotlight focuses on the accident that has brought out a full course yellow that we are still in.
And, Paul, we didn't get to see contact between D'Amata and Gugelmin. We think that D'Amata was just swerving as they came into the frame there, trying to avoid Gugelmin. And very hot, Carpentier minding his own business, turning into the corner. Gugelmin slaps to the inside, rolls over the top of him, and does a full barrel roll.
And then, while under the full course yellow, DeFerrin was warming his tires, and he got his car into the wall and heavily damaged that machine, and DeFerrin is out. At lap 15, DeFerrin had completed 9,000 laps in career competition in kart, and then did heavy damage to his car. Now, we're going to give you the full field rundown as it is now, but let me tell you about Patrick Carpentier. As you saw, the left rear of Gugelmin's car was riding up on the rollover bar on Carpentier's car. He was taken out of the car in full neck brace. The report is officially from CART that he was conscious, he was communicating, and he has been transported direct to Detroit Receiving Hospital. They expect it will be some time before they have a further update on Patrick Carpentier.
Green. Good job.
Kanan moves on more as we go back to green. CART officials were able, during the yellow, to get the cleaning equipment out and clean up the marbles on much of the course.
And look at Greg Moore. He's not taking the normal line. He said, Tony, you want to pass me? You've got to do it on the outside. You can't get it done. Moore knows they just swept the track during the yellow. But look at Tony coming back on the inside. Can't get it done there. They've swept the track. They got rid of all the marbles. Greg used that to his advantage, trying to keep Tony behind him, and it worked.
3 cautions thus far for 15 laps on board Moreno. Moreno is 8th. Vassar ahead. We mentioned his accident, didn't see much of it. Jan Bikas, what happened?
Well, let's ask him. That was one of the stranger accidents we've seen. Just get away from you?
It was completely my fault. I must apologize to all the Walker Racing team. I was warming up the tires, to make sure I had a good restart. Obviously, we fell back a little bit on the start of the race. I was trying to get the tires as warm as I could, and I lost it, really. I mean, there's no other explanation of that.
Well, thankfully, you were quick in a test in Mid-Ohio. Hope you have better luck there.
Thank you. We'll see what happens over there.
When the green came out, Al Unser Jr. was able to jump from 16th up to 13th. So little Al on the move. Montoya still leading. And Franchitti closing, followed by Tracy. Back to a procession as they come off of the corner. Looking up track for Scott Pruitt. There he is, right behind Herta. Up to 10th now. And working on Brian Herta.
And in that fight, Castroneves, who's made a great jump from his qualifying spot of 18th up to 11th place, and Gonzalo Rodriguez, currently running Formula 3000. He won Monaco this year. Very, very good on street courses. He had a day of testing last week at Mid-Ohio, and he has gotten very comfortable very quickly here at Detroit. He told me a few days ago it's more horsepower than he's ever driven. He's a little uncomfortable with the walls here, with the lack of grip compared to the permanent course at Mid-Ohio, and yet he's done a great job stepping into this Lola chassis for Team Penske.
Remember, Robbie Gordon involved in incident too. He is out now with Jan.
Yes, and unfortunately, Robbie, we saw Jan Magnussen come and make an aggressive move. Did you see him coming?
I looked back coming off of turn 2. It looked like he was about 6 car lengths behind me, so I figured no way he had an opportunity of passing me going down into turn 3. We've been really struggling with this car ever since St. Louis. It hasn't been right. We've tried twisting and do everything else. I think when we get back this weekend, we're going to have to cut it up.
Cut it up? You mean like saw it in half?
Chainsaw, I don't know, something. Cut it up. We'll glue it back together. Maybe it'll be better.
Thanks, Robbie.
You can only say that as a driver, Paul, if you're also the team owner.
Also the driver and owner, exactly. The guy with a great sense of humor.
And
Robbie Gordon.
And he shared a lot in the sufferings and struggles of P.J. Jones. And, of course, there are a lot of comparisons. P.J. having the Swift chassis, Firestone tires, and the Cosworth power plant, the same package as Newman Haas. But You know, not all cars are created equal, or at least developed equally, and it's been a struggle for both Robbie and with PJ, knowing that they've got the ability to do it, just looking for the opportunity to prove it.
We talked about the 9,000th lap in competition for Gil de Ferran. On the 16th lap, Brian Herta matched that feat. Boy, 2.3 seconds.
And on that last lap, Montoya was 9/10 of a second quicker at a 1:16 flat. The next group of cars all back in the low 118s, high 117s. Those two are obviously the class of the field after this last restart.
Approaching the halfway point here, there is Herta with Pruitt and Helio Castroneves lined up behind him.
Castroneves had a big crash earlier in the weekend, very sore, broke all the engine mounts back of the Mercedes Lola. They pulled out the spare car. Wasn't comfortable during qualifying, and he's having a great race.
Parker and I were over at Bobby Rahaal's team this morning as he was introducing his two drivers, Brian Herta and Max Pappas, to his supporters. And you can see how much they do enjoy one another's company, joking around, having a good time with the crowd. Both very pleasant guys. Max Pappas out early. Terrible luck right on the start. So his bad luck from the US 500 2 weeks ago continued here on Belle Isle.
Brian Herta with a strong performance earlier in the year at Long Beach. A lot of expected him this year. He's had difficulty on the ovals. Had some problems qualifying. He was fairly quick in this morning's warm-up. He's having a good race now in 9th place.
39 complete, 36 to go, past the halfway point. Michael Andretti runs 6th place. We're going to go up and ride with him for a while. Tony Kanaan. Mauricio Guzman does a full roll that puts him into the gravel pit as he tangles with Carpentier. Gary Gerald, what's the story?
Well, he is back now with his team at the transporter in the paddock, and you obviously appear to be okay. That had to be a very frightening situation. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it was pretty difficult. We came all together on the braking point. I was the middle to the left of the road a little bit. As I brake with my car fishtailed to the left first, and then to the right. Lock rear wheels. Initially, I thought I may have had some contacts with Cristiano, but I'm not sure about that. It was just my brakes locking the rear, or if there was any contacts. It was just very hard to feel. But unfortunately, I went backwards over Patrick, and I checked his car. My rear tire just went over his roll bar, but I heard he's fine. He's just complaining about some neck pain and just doing some more exams to make sure there is nothing wrong.
How badly was your car hurt?
My car wasn't that badly hurt because it ended up on its wheels again, but I rolled twice, I think, and I got a little bit bang inside the car, but everything's fine.
Okay, and we may add, Paul, as a postscript, that D'Amato's crew said there was no contact apparently between the cars.
Well, we're looking at the battle for 13th, led by Unger Jr. That's Michel Jourdain Jr. behind him, and his teammate, Mimo Gidley. And then Cristiano D'Amato is 4th in this line.
And at the back of that group, right behind Cristiano, is Mark Blundell in the new livery of the Digital DNA Motorola car. Remember, Mark had a problem at the start of the race. He was dead last. He's come back up now to 17th. The biggest problem he's had is with the new driver suit, new color. Also, the team has new uniforms. The first pit stop in the first practice, he drove right by him. And remember, this is a very physically demanding place. He's recovering from a broken neck, and look at him come through the field.
And Richie Hearn, the 10 car in the Phase 6 Toyota, is up behind Mark Blundell. So Montoya continues to lead it, chased by Franchitti and Tracy. Back at Belle Isle, two teammates, Memo Gidley and Jourdain Jr., both pulled to the edge of the race course. They've gone full course yellow. Montoya stayed out despite that while everybody else is coming in.
Yeah, and the crew, I think, was surprised by that, Paul.
And Greg Moore comes in and makes his stop. Remember, last time he picked up the most positions, but I think he did it because he short-filled last time. This time he does it in 13 seconds. I think they got all the fuel this time.
But what a surprise for Montoya. Kanaan having a little trouble getting away from the pits, finally clears his engine and rolls back up to the pit lane speed limit, 50 miles an hour. There comes Moreno.
But Tony lost the position to Andretti. We saw Michael go by there.
So, Gary Gerald, what was up with Montoya?
Well, we know that the team was ready for him. They were over the wall, and Chip Ganassi, they had wanted him to come in. Apparently, a miscommunication of some type. Montoya stayed out. All the other rivals have come in and pitted. And since this more than likely will be the last stop, this is going to put Montoya way back in the progression. He's going to lost a lot of track position here.
He'll lose major track position on this circuit because of the nature of the circuit with a lot of trees and some structures. You get over on the backside, your two-way communications don't always work with the pits, but usually the pit can get through. It's the car that can't get back to the pits. It sounds like this went in reverse.
Boy, that's the important link, Paul, is as long as they can talk to you, and missing that pit in for Montoya could be the race for him, because now we know they're just outside their final pit window, so unless they get the right yellow at the right time, even then he's lost track position. I think his race is over at this point.
Last stop, Greg Moore had a terrific stop. What about this time, Jan?
Yes, it was a little bit about what I was talking while he stopped there, as I tried to check with the crew prior to this yellow, and I said, you had the biggest improvement of anyone. Did you fill the tank up? They had kind of a bit of a grin and wouldn't give me an answer. But this particular yellow came at a perfect time. So if they had short filled, in other words, didn't wait for the fuel tank to fill up to make a faster stop, it was perfect timing. They filled it this time. They should be able to make it to the end.
Now, the distance is 75 laps. We've just completed the 44th lap and our fourth full course yellow of the day. Back to the update on Montoya, Gary.
Well, the crew's taking their helmets off here on the wall now, and we understand that the word has gone to Montoya to stay out. They'll try to stretch it as far as they can, but still, he's down one pit stop to all the other primary contenders. He's still in the lead, but he's down in that critical department.
Oh, that Ganassi is a gambler. He's done it before. Last time he did it in Portland, it didn't really work out for him. So Montoya will stay out, not taking the service. Ganassi is hoping that there's going to be another yellow. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
You're watching ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Back at Belle Isle in Detroit for the Tenneco Automotive Grand Prix of Detroit. Montoya stays out of the pits. In doing so, he continues in the lead. Mark Blundell, pretty much the same situation. Franchitti, Tracy Moore, they've all been in the pits. But in reality, it's only been 10 green flag laps since Montoya last pitted, owing to back-to-back yellows there. So Montoya at least has some distance in the tank, but he may have to, well, he will have to come in. There's the laps left in the tank, assuming he filled full last time, and that seems to be a good assumption.
It all comes down to track position. Everyone's going to have to stop at least one more time. It's where the stop comes and whether it's under yellow. I don't think it was their intended strategy, but it is now. Obviously, PacWest has made a huge gain with Mark Blundell. But on this restart, we saw Dario Franchitti didn't get close enough. Look at Michael.
Oh, Michael comes roaring down the inside. Gets past Jimmy Vasser. On the course at Belle Isle, the raceway at Belle Isle, they call it. The starts and the restarts are the good times to pass because of the close proximity for everybody. Michael takes advantage of it.
Michael, with his years and years of tire testing experience, is able to get on the cold set of new tires and be able to get the most out of them. We've seen Dario do that, and certainly Juan Montoya has instantly become probably the best at doing it on these starts and restarts. It's one of the things that impressed me most about Mike when I first joined the Champ Car Series, is watching Michael go out on sticker tires and just be absolutely hung out on the ragged edge right on the exit of the pit lane with the tire stone cold.
Roberto, Herta, and the rest of the field come through, still tightly bunched owing to the restart. How frustrating for the Peyton Coyne team to have two cars in this race. Gidley and Jourdain Jr. have them both go out on the same lap and just roll to the edge of the race course.
And they were having a great race. Jourdain was leading Gidley. Gidley passed Jourdain. Jourdain got past Gidley. But now we're watching Mark Blundell. He's been working out, training as much as he can around the recovery of his neck. But, Paul, there's no substitute for driving these cars. On Belle Isle, they're at 3.5 Gs in quartering. You can see it's very, very rough. And especially for your neck, of all things to injure. I mean, it's very critical to be fit here. Oh, Mark gets it too deep, locks a wheel.
Saves it off the barrier, gets right back in the action, but that's going to send everybody scurrying behind him. They all get around safely.
Tony Kanaan, Roberto Moreno looking down the inside. He's got the pass completed as well. And it looked like he actually flat spotted that tire. We could see it look like a big groove out of the top of that tire for Mark Blundell. He was driving a great race after starting from the back, coming through the field.
Jan Bigas, the update on Blundell.
Well, Parker was mentioning that he did not think it was their intended strategy not to stop. I checked with the team. In fact, it was their strategy. They did not plan to come on pit road.
So Montoya by accident, and Juan Montoya sits at the front still. Gary Gerald. Well, looks like Herta kind of brushed the wall. Might have just white-walled it. Continues on. Sorry, Gary.
No problem, Paul. Checking with Chip Ganassi, of course, we mentioned the miscommunication. They wanted Montoya to pit. He did not. Now the strategy is go full rich. They've told him use the button on every straightaway. They want to open up as big a margin as they possibly can before they have to come in for what would be a final stop. Also, we had some bad information relating to laps left when we reported that all the other front runners were within that final window. That may not necessarily be the case. There may be some suspense for some of those guys. They may have to make a splash if, in fact, they don't get more yellow.
48 laps complete. 75 the scheduled distance. Al Unser Jr. and his teammate for this race, Rodriguez, battling on the track together. 13th position. There they come through. Al just got around him. You'll see Alex Barron come back and support Al Unser Jr. at Chicago. But all the questions revolve around the driver of number 2 there, Al Unser Jr. Where does he go next year? What are his plans? Been pretty quiet about it. Stay at CART, end up in the IRL. Who might he be with? One of the Penske crew thought that he might want to get back together with his old buddy Rick Gallis and put that whole Albuquerque, New Mexico connection back together. And only time will tell on that one.
The only opportunity to overtake in this situation when they're so close is someone making a mistake. We talked about Mark Blundell, Pac West keeping him out on purpose. That's a strategy that they used with Moreno at Toronto that worked so successfully. We think Montoya was obviously a mistake. We know that Pac West left him out on purpose, and as long as the yellow comes down in the right position or the strategy works out with the last set of stops, it's going to be all up to the crews to now get the pass done towards the checker flag.
Past years, Roger Penske has wanted to make his announcement of drivers at the end of the year, but word is that one of the drivers told his crew, and Roger had to announce. Back at Belle Isle in Detroit, the CART FedEx Championship Series. Nothing has changed since we left you. Montoya still leads it. This is the best battle on the course. Jimmy Vasser, Tony Kanaan, and Roberto Moreno. You're looking down from the Honda Helicam. As those three work their way around, Montoya gets the bonus point now for the most laps led. We've completed 55 of the 75.
And Montoya's turning laps a second and a half quicker than anybody else. He's extended his lead to just over 12 seconds.
Kanaan darts out, takes a look inside. Vasser decides not to. Moreno continues right there. Battle is for 6th. That's the 11th bonus point of the season for Montoya.
Moreno with a good run on Tony Kanaan here.
Moreno charges down the inside, but he can't do it there. Drops back into line.
Very difficult place to pass. It snakes left and back to the right, but there's only one diagonal line right through the middle of it.
Montoya still sits in the lead. Jan Beekes, when will he be in? I'm sorry, Gary.
Well, we're standing by down here, Paul. We think that it's going to be at lap number 58. The crew has their helmets back on, and we're just waiting with them. Keeping in mind one thing, on the first stop today, they had a problem with the fuel nozzle device. There was a malfunction of some type. They then, after the stop, it was a 17-second stop, they replaced that nozzle very quickly. CART officials were right on top of the scenario, so they think that there'll be no problem with fueling, and they're anticipating a much quicker stop. Also keep in mind, the later he can go, the less fuel he'll need to get to lap 75. So a couple of things working in the advantage of this team. But if it has to come under the green, even with this big lead that he's built up, it could still prove to be very costly in terms of track position.
Now we go to Jan Beekes.
And my update would be for Mark Blundell, because he has a similar situation to where they're expecting him on pit road. And they say 4 or 5 laps from now, he will come in and make no changes, but get the fuel that they know will take them to the end of the race.
Well, 3 times out of the 10 races at Detroit, a leader at the halfway has gone on to win the race, Montoya. And 5 out of 10 races in Detroit, the driver leading the most laps did not win the race. Kanaan, you saw Moreno gets around Kanaan.
And Paul, the last time we saw the strategy was DeFerrin at Portland. He went to full power and charged. Montoya now has over a 15-second lead. This is the same strategy that took the Walker team to that win while everyone else was conserving fuel. I think that's the strategy that will work also for Chip Ganassi racing. You can see how hard Montoya drives. They're all driving extremely hard, but he's trying to build this lead. If everyone else is trying to conserve to get to the end without stopping, which is doubtful at this point, they'll have to get well over 2 miles per gallon. This is the strategy that'll work. What I thought at first wasn't a winning way may be exactly the way that outfoxes the rest of the field.
The interval first to second, 15.5 seconds. Montoya is pitted well down toward pit out.
You're only going to be half full of fuel. You're only going to be half full. You still want the wing? If it doesn't take longer, yes. If it takes longer, no. 10-4. When that fuel's in, I'm going to tell you to go.
Gary Gerald's there waiting for him.
We've heard Chip Ganassi and Juan Montoya.
Slow down.
Right on the mark. Now this should be quick. We'll see if they make that wing change or not. Cool cars have gone to the lead. There is the wing change.
Go.
There he goes. Just under 10 seconds. Good stop. But will he be? Other guys have to make a splash before it's all said and done.
Boy, that is the question. They're going to play that close to the vest. There's Montoya. You see the interval, then back to him. There he is.
Looks to be about 9th place. Comes out behind Magnussen. Not a factor at this point. Blundell's the next car for position. You saw him put the front wing in. He's putting it even more past neutral to oversteer. We've seen Montoya drive with the back end of the car out all year long. He wanted even more of that to try to get the most out of it. Now the strategy, the cars in front of them, can they make it without a splash and go? Certainly they have to conserve. Montoya is now just flat out.
Looked a couple turns ago like Magnussen pulled up, but then got back into the action. We'll track him for you. Couple of estimates on fuel mileage for you. Franchitti, 15 laps left in the tank. We're at 58. That would be 2 laps short. They've got to assume the rest for the same thing for Franchitti. Not only Franchitti, but Tracy, and for more. Gary Gerald?
Just a quick follow-up conversation on the radio after Montoya exited. Chip Ganassi again on the horn saying, you are full rich. They, the rest of the field, are full lean. That really sums up what Parker was saying. He'd just put the hammer down and go for anything he possibly can while the other guys are in that conservation mode.
On the first lap back, he's 10 seconds back, Paul. Now in 8th place. And if he was pulling away a 2.5 lap before the pits, it'll only be a matter of time. This will be exciting. Watch Montoya try to work his way through this group of cars for the front.
Mark Blundell, same situation. He'll come in off of 9th place and refuel about half a tank as well.
So the Pac West strategy, when this is all said and done, won't really have gained them any track position, but for Montoya, the mistake was the perfect one to make.
And still keeping track of Montoya. Gary?
Yeah, and an intriguing note here, because as Montoya works his way forward, Jimmy Vasser, his teammate, will allow him to get by as quickly as possible when he encounters his teammate in car number 12.
So some team orders go out. Of course, it's not now, but if it were, look what that does to the championship fight. Especially considering Fittipaldi Fernandez out of the action for at least a couple of races. Montoya's still behind Kanaan. Sits in 8th place.
The interval went from just over 10 seconds down to 9 seconds flat. He's going to look down the inside into turn 3. Oh, man, and he made it stick.
That's one. He took it all the way off the course and almost comes back into Kanaan.
Well, that second move from 3 down into 4 is going to really draw the attention of Chief Stewart Wally Dallenbach, because that was a big move across the nose of Tony Kanaan.
Montoya ahead of Kanaan into 7th. 60 laps to complete, 15 to go. Can Franchitti and Tracy and more make it all the way? We'll be back with more right after this. Back at Belle Isle, and our Toyota Spotlight has some action for you. Montoya trying to get around Moreno for 8th. They touch. They both slide off. They both restart. That's the view from Montoya's car. That brings out the full course, and then Cristiano D'Amata, as they came back to green, bottomed in a bump coming off of one of the corners just past the start-finish. Destroyed the car. Allenser Jr. spun to miss it. He actually hit the wall at a safety zone where the equipment comes out. The view from Richie Hearn.
Watch the pieces fly. Look at the quick decisions that Richie Hearn has to make. Fortunately, he just clips one of the front nose wings off Cristiano's car.
But what this does, and by the way, Cristiano D'Amata is okay. Franchitti having trouble keeping it under control there as he came back off of the same bump.
Look at every one of those cars, Paul, and as Cristiano came over the top of that rise, flat out in 4th gear, the back end stepped out. He started to catch it. It snapped back the other direction, made huge contact. You can see the cars coming through. Allenser Jr. actually spinning the car to avoid having any contact. He got restarted, has come into the pits, has gotten 4 new tires, and he's back away. We saw the first incident, Montoya, it was deja vu all over again. The same thing we saw with Magnussen and Gordon. A very low percentage pass. He tried to go down the inside. He didn't have it done. Moreno's not going to let him by. He turns in for the corner. Moreno slides off to the outside. He gets restarted, but a lap down. Montoya continues now in 7th place.
So the full course yellow is out, and they have turned this now to a timed race on the 2-hour limit. Right about 8 minutes to go. We will carry you all the way to the checkered flag, but a tremendous change in the complexion of the race back in the field, and certainly with Montoya, who will come back to the green flag in 7th place.
And this has turned it into the Saturday night main, Paul, because now with all this yellow, no one has to conserve fuel. We've only got 7 minutes left, and this next restart is going to be incredibly important. Can Paul get around Dara? Remember, it was only a few races ago. It was 1st and 2nd at Toronto for Team Green.
This is Montoya trying to make the pass on Moreno.
He starts to get down the inside, but he doesn't have it done. He realizes that Moreno is turning down for the apex. He tries to get his nose back out of it. It's too late. It's right rear to left front, just like we saw earlier in the race.
Moreno, too, got restarted, but he came out 1 lap behind the lead in 15th place. Gary Gerald?
We're with Cristiano D'Amata. He's just talked with his team. It looked awful scary from our vantage point. What was it like from where you saw it?
Yeah, it was scary too, but maybe not sure if it was as scary as it was from the outside, because the cockpit part of the car didn't hit the wall, just the side part of the car, so the impact wasn't actually quite hard. And, you know, the car did his job. All the safety equipment did his job. I'm fine.
What happened, Cristiano? Did the back end step out, or did someone make contact from behind?
No, I was just right behind Herta, and I was getting a good run on him, so I tried to put the power down a little bit earlier and just lost the rear.
Glad you're all right.
All right, no, I'm fine.
Well, I think he's going to think that impact was a lot bigger than he thinks it was when he watches that video. That's Cal Wells, his team owner. Cal, really concerned about his very expensive property there, that very talented young Brazilian, wanting to make sure that he's okay. He can replace this car, but not Cristiano da Matta.
Fortunately, he did get the nose turned to the left just before he got to that opening in the wall, and turned him out and slapped the right side of the car into the barrier, tore off the right side. Jan Bikas now, as we're counting down toward the end of the race and assume we're going to get green before the end of it, what's it do for fuel? Is that question all gone?
Well, it is, Paul. It changes the whole complexion of the race. Remember that the Montoya strategy was always predicated on the fact that there would be no yellow. Well, wouldn't you know that it was Juan Montoya that brought out the yellow that foiled that strategy? Because had it stayed green, had it not been a timed race, we know there was a whole group of cars that may not have made it to the end. Now that it's timed, everybody has fuel. They can all go full rich, and they can duke it out if we get some green flag running.
And as we look back through the field there as they come through, Castro Neves, we've got to say he's just had a great run from 18th up to 8th place. Also now Scott Pruitt in 9th place, and Blundell in his first race back. Mark is there in that Motorola digital DNA car up in 11th place. A great run for him as well.
About 4.5 minutes to go. We give you the summary of the full field at this point with Franchetti in the lead. And don't forget, Monday night, the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Football. The 30th anniversary season begins. The annual Hall of Fame game. Cleveland Browns versus the Dallas Cowboys. So we go back to green flag with Franchitti in the lead and the clock counting down. At least we hope we do. Gary Gerald?
Oh, we've got an interesting report here from Dario Franchitti. Allegedly in the cockpit, he thinks he sees fluid coming from one of the safety cars up in front of him, and he's concerned about it. I would be too.
Well, and the report actually coming in a couple of different places on that now, and that's the last thing they need on this circuit.
And it's the last thing you want a driver focusing on as they come back to the final restart of the race. You don't want any concerns about track conditions. You want your driver solely focused on getting a good jump on the pace car and the rest of the field, making sure that he's not attacked from behind, focusing solely on getting just the last few laps out of the car to get to the checkered flag.
Now, here's what they're going to do. They're going to switch pace cars. Not going to take the chance. We haven't had a confirmation of that as a problem from the course observers, but there it goes. Pace car goes into the pits, and now we'll exchange for another one. First time I've ever called that.
Yeah, what's frightening is I drove that PPG pace car just a few days ago, and it was working fine then, Paul, I swear. And I left it that way. I'm telling you the truth.
I'm not so sure, Parker. I'm going back and check on you. The new pace car will now pick him up. Montoya's in trouble, and it's exactly
the same place, Paul.
It's what happened to DeFerrin. Exactly the same point on the circuit. This is really only a few feet from the broadcast booth, trying to scrub the tires up. Look, he gets into Castro Neves and then into the wall.
Well, or did Castro Neves get into him, Paul? That's the question. We'll have to see that again. We are right on the outside of the fastest corner on the racetrack at 170 miles an hour, and the target car is literally less than 15 feet from where we're sitting, right on the outside of that corner. I don't think I've ever seen that either. Remember, Detroit's one of those places. Nothing happens for a while, and then the strangest things happen.
And so Montoya strikes the wall. The white flag comes out. The race will finish as a timed race under yellow. Franchitti 1-2 going to the checkered flag when they come by. Look at Castro Neves. He's got severe damage. He's going to try to get it around. We're going to get the white as they come around.
He's got 2 minutes to go, Paul, but look, the tire's now about ready to leave that rim. This is primarily a right-hand course. It's the left front wheel. Oh, boy, I'm going to be very surprised if they don't black flag him.
A look from Montoya's point of view. I wonder if the pace car pulling off to the right confused him in some way.
Well, I'm not so sure. Oh, he just got nailed from behind, Paul.
Yep.
That was all Castro Neves into the back of him. You can see the hand in the air. That's what I suspected the first time we saw it. I just wanted to make sure.
So, and now they circulate. Yellow flags around all around. Race is slowed. Franchitti and Tracy will see the white flag, and shades of Toronto Team Green may, in fact, assuming everybody can make it all the way to the finish, come up with a 1-2 victory again. Magnussen's view.
You can see the booth just on the outside there, Paul. What an amazing occurrence. This would be the 11th straight street race victory for Honda. Once again, another Franchitti Tracy 1 and 2. And very, very impressively, Franchitti has now been on the podium the last 7 of 9 street course races. That is a tremendous statistic.
So now they work their way through that corner and come to the white flag. It's the final corner on the course, and Castroneves stays out there. He's going to take that final lap. Montoya out of the race, back to the pits. He's with Jan.
And Juan, what happened there? Hit from behind?
But the pacer came in, and nobody, like, I think car radio the team's really late because nobody said anything to me. And everyone started like going because nobody knew if it was a restart or no. And, you know, everyone went, and they brake, I braked, and I don't know, I think it was Castroneves didn't even bother to brake and went straight to the back of me. You know, I think, you know, I don't say anything because I get in trouble again, but.
Well, that's exactly what our concern, in fact, was. There is Castroneves. He's going to make it this final lap one way or the other. And Montoya suggested what we suggested earlier, seeing the replacement on the pace car and the pace car head into the pit area. Somebody maybe made an assumption that, in fact, the race was going to restart, began to accelerate. Well, as they come around, and again, in this race, I'm not assuming anything. I want to see him make it all the way to the checkered flag. But it looks like Franchitti and Tracy will be 1-2. And that will give Dario Franchitti the points lead.
But I wouldn't assume anything, Paul, because as you said, I've had some good races here, started 4th one year, thought I had a shot for the pole, thought things were going to go great, and every year, not only myself, but many other drivers walk away from this place scratching their head, wondering what happened, what went wrong, whether it was yourself or just a victim of the most peculiar circumstances, and we've seen it again today at Belle Isle.
Well, the team is owned by Barry Green, Franchitti and Tracy, and his brother Kim works with him, Gary.
Yes, indeed, and Kim Green, you've been around this racing game for a long time. This has been kind of a bizarre afternoon. Have you ever seen anything quite like this?
No, it's been full of ups and downs. I don't think we quite had as good a car as maybe Montoya had, but we just worked hard all day. Great pit stops, great support from our sponsors, Cool, obviously from Honda and from Firestone. And, you know, things happen in the races that you just got to stay out there, focus and work at it every lap. And, you know, we got a little bit lucky with circumstances today. We'll take the points and the win as long as we get around here to take the checkered flag. And, you know, it's just it's tightened up the championship, made it exciting. Just, you know, what can I say? It just fell our way.
Let me go back now. Prior to these last couple of incidents, the results in this race ending under yellow, how concerned were you about Montoya's ability to maybe get back up through the field and challenge from 8th or 9th position where he was?
Well, we were watching his times, and he was catching us at a second a lap initially, then the next lap half a second. We had enough fuel. We thought we were going to turn it up towards the end. So
here's your man.
We'll take this one. Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you very much. Great team effort.
Well, so they did do it. There is the win. Dario Franchitti scores the 5th of his career, 2nd of the season. Helio Castroneves stuck with it, made it across the line, and now Franchitti will have 5 points on Montoya as they head off in 1 week to Mid-Ohio. And Castroneves, he comes across the line in 7th place. One quick update. And the note from Dr. Steve Alvey on Patrick Carpentier. He is awake. He's alert. He has some tingling in his hands. It's expected to clear. They're going to take some precautionary x-rays of his neck and back. And when we come back, we will look at the winner, Dario Franchitti, and talk with him and ask him what he thought about all the stuff that went on Belle Isle.
The Tenneco Automotive Grand Prix of Detroit on ABC Sports. Brought to you by Tenneco Automotive, manufacturers of Monroe Sensatrack shocks and struts. Brewery Fresh Budweiser, official beer of Cart. This Bud's for you. And FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series.
Back at Belle Isle, here are the unofficial results.
And attaboys, Paul, for Jimmy Vasser, 12th to 5th. Casnevis, 18th to 7th. Pruitt, 17th up to 8th. Markland Bell, 10th on his return. Walter Saul scoring his first point in the Eagle chassis. And Gonzalo Rodriguez finishing in the points for the first time for Penske.
Montoya gets a point for laps led and pole. Here's Gary.
Dario Franchitti comes out of the cockpit on a bizarre afternoon at Belle Isle. We just asked one of your key owners, Kim Green, who had been on the radio with you, if he'd ever experienced anything quite so unusual in his racing career. I'm going to ask you the same thing.
No, I haven't. As I said to the guys on the radio there, it's a pretty ugly way to win a race, but we'll take it any way we can.
I want to know about late in the race, when you knew that Montoya had fallen back to about 8th or 9th and was gaining a second a lap, and you were having to conserve fuel. Were you worried about him getting up in a position where you might not win this event?
I was kind of worried, but we'd been conserving so much fuel that we were ready to go for it towards the end. So, I mean, there wasn't really a worry on that point. It was just he had to come through some traffic. I just don't know what to say. Great job by Team Cool Green today, another 1-2, and thanks to Firestone for some awesome tires. And Honda, another 1-2 for them. A great day.
And I'm assured that you probably are well aware of the fact that you are now leading the championship point standings. How does that feel?
Well, that feels kind of nice. I knew something was up when I kind of looked on the jumbo screen under the yellow and I saw Juan walking away from the car. So, you know, the time to be leading the championships right at the end of the season, so hopefully we can keep it until then.
Yeah, quite a few changes in the points. Dario moves 2nd to 1st, Tracy 6th to 4th, and Greg Moore 8th to a tie for 6th place. Here's Jan Vikas.
Paul, an awesome day for both you and Dario. Another 1-2, but that whole situation with the pace car and everything must have been scary.
Well, it was a little bit disappointing because I thought that, you know, we were making great fuel mileage with the cool car and the tires were great. So, you know, I thought we could have made a run at Dario at the end because we were staying right behind him, making the fuel mileage we had to. But, you know, early in the race, I had to let Dario go by because my qualifying tires were really poor. And I just couldn't get the traction off the corners, and I was really fighting just to stay in front of him and had to let him go. But, you know, it's a great result for Team Cool Green, our second 1-2 of the year, and, you know, the points race has definitely gotten tight.
Did you know that they were going to exchange pace cars? I know you know there was a problem, but were you told they were going to make that exchange?
Well, I radioed and said the pace car was pouring fuel out of the back of it, and it was all coming out of the fuel tank for some reason, and that was making the track even more slippery. But, you know, it's a little bit disappointing to end under yellow, but, you know, this car's, you know, I guess Montoya got crashed into, and it's disappointing, but, you know, we'll take the finish.
And our final Toyota Spotlight of the day looks at a most unusual day on Belle Isle. We have confirmed with the teams and race control that they did have notification that they were going to switch the pace cars. Now, in 1 week, the CART FedEx Championship Series heads off to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Coverage on ESPN. We'll see you there 2 weeks on ABC at Chicago. ABC Sports is online at ESPN.com, part of the Go Network.